Write down your goal for next year. And if the person you are today can hit it, my guest today says that's not a goal, that's your ceiling. Hey, I'm Scott Beckford, and this is another mortgage brokering podcast. Today I have Derrick Johnston. This is a talk he gave at our most recent Broker Talks event. And he's a mortgage broker, track coach, and shares his lessons learned from coaching, as well as hitting a first $100,000 a year, how it left him feeling empty, and how refocusing and coming up with some filters in order to set better goals has allowed him to now grow a significantly bigger business. Figure we're going to enjoy this conversation. Before we jump into that, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ownwell. Ownwell is an amazing tool for Canadian brokers. It allows them to send these amazing reports to their database that get engagement, 60 to 70% open rates. Because it's got your client's data, tracks rates and penalties, you can even tell when there's an opportunity to save a client money, and it'll create a communication for you. Check them out at ownwell.ca and check out this conversation with Derrick.
So I want to kick things off first with something a little fun. So you're going to learn something about yourself today. It's called the E-test. We're going to learn what your default communication style is. Okay. So everybody take your dominant hand, put it up in the air, snap your fingers 5 times. Perfect. That was just to completely distract you. Take that same dominant hand with your index finger, write the capital letter E on your forehead. Where is he going with this? Okay, I just magically divided the room. Show of hands if you wrote the letter E so that I could read it. Wow. Okay, hands down. Show of hands if you wrote the letter E so that you could read it. Everyone's a little more timid with that one. Okay, so those of you that wrote the letter E so that you could read it, congratulations, you're a bunch of selfish narcissists. Neither one of those default communication styles is good or bad. It's just important for you to understand what your default setting is, because you need to be able to toggle that switch depending on what scenario you're in. So if you wrote the letter E so that you could personally read it, you might be better at those decisive deal structuring conversations. You might be better at controlling the client journey, closing, getting commitment. We all know that polarizing content on social media is always getting the most attention. You might be better at creating that content and being more direct. Okay. Those of you that wrote the letter E so that I could read it up here, are you comfortable being in front of camera and being polarizing and saying something that's going to attract some stray bullets? No, right? If you wrote the letter E so that I could read it, you might be better at building those deep client relationships. When you're on your discovery calls, you might be able to uncover opportunities a little better because you're listening. You might be able to explain complex strategies a little more simply. And again, you might be able to build those long-term relationships better because of the warmth and empathy that is in your communication style. So for people like me, I write the letter E so that I could read it. I need to be more aware of that and know when to toggle that switch and be able to change if I catch myself. So your key takeaways: know your default setting, because that's important to be able to toggle the switch for different scenarios, because different scenarios, it might be better to have a different communication style. Okay. Now, what's the connection between this and growth and goals? It's really about just having a deep awareness of who you are as an individual. Because when it comes to communication, we're hardwired to be a certain way. It's the same thing with goals and growth. I'm wired to think small, and it took me a long time to figure that out. And that's okay. Once you know, you can make changes. Okay. So I used to think the goal was simple. Just be a little bit better than last year. More deals, more volume, more money. And there's a problem with that, because if being a little bit better was the answer, then we'd all eventually feel successful. But we don't. Instead, what happens is we get a little bit better, more deals, less time, more clients, more stress, and more income, but for some reason, not more freedom. And that doesn't make sense, because we were told that growth is supposed to make things easier, but it doesn't always do that. So either we're all doing something wrong, or the way we've been taught to think about growth is broken. So I want to travel back in time a little bit here. That athlete on the left is Joy Spearchief Morris. My previous background before doing this was coaching track and field. That's out at UBC. She was one of the fastest females in the country. And naturally, when you are that good in sport, the conversation of the Olympics comes up. So we had a conversation about what her big goals were, and she wanted to go to the Olympics. I'm a bit of a realist, and I didn't think she had quite what it took to get to the Olympics in the 100 or the 200. And, I packaged it a little nicer to not burst her bubble and ruin her dreams. But we started talking about where can we bring that speed into a different event to go from being one of the best in the country to one of the best in the world. And we landed on hurdles. So it's like, let's try it. That pic on the left is day one of her going over a hurdle. And it does not take a track and field coach to see that she sucked. And I started questioning if we were making the right decision here. The pic on the right is exactly 1 month later, and it doesn't take a track coach to see that she's significantly better by putting in a little bit of work. Well, a lot of work. 1 month after the second pic was taken there, so 2 months in, never done hurdles in her life, and we throw her into a race. And I'm on the side of the track like this. Please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall. And what does she do? 2 hurdles in, crashes. And she's an elite athlete, so she gets right back up, keeps going. 2 more hurdles later, another fall. And I yell from the side of the track, stop, stop. I don't want her to get hurt anymore. I'm embarrassed. I'm thinking I don't know what I'm doing. Like I've totally screwed up this talented athlete. Later on that summer, I get a call from Western, and I'm from London, Ontario, and they needed another coach. So I get transferred from UBC to Western. And she chose to uproot her life and continue her education at Western to follow me because she believed in the plan. Almost more than I did at that point. But I felt grateful that she did that because 5 years later, she finished 5th at the World University Games in Italy. I wish she was here for that. And the pic on the right is her on the cover of Canadian Running Magazine. So to go from this to this in 5 years requires a bit of 10x thinking, right? Because that person was not capable of doing that. So we went really big, came up with a game plan, and executed. She never did end up making the Olympics. COVID got in the way. And a lot of you might know in this level of sport, it takes a lot of money. And at some point you have to move on with your life and get a job and all that sort of stuff. So COVID kind of derailed the rest of her career and she never did quite make it, but I think she succeeded quite well. So think about this story because there's an obvious connection between athlete goals and our goals in business. That very well can be you right now, but so can that. So the 2 pictures that are up there are my kids and my wife, and they're my why. They're the reason I'm up here right now, and I'm going to talk about my why a little bit later. I'm light years outside of my comfort zone right now up here. And looking at them right now gives me that courage and confidence to be doing this because I see the big value long term. So my background, I funded 30 deals in 2024 and I made $100,000 for the first time in my life. I come from a pretty humble background, so that was a huge deal for me. So yeah, I made $100,000 for the first time in my life in 2024. And I thought that was supposed to feel amazing, but it didn't. It felt empty. It felt like I was limiting myself and I could do more. And then in 2025, I actually went backwards. I only did 25 deals. And that was confusing to me because I think I'm putting in the work. I'm doing all the right things. And at the end of 2025, I started reading a book called 10X is Easier Than 2X. And at face value, that sounds a little bit ridiculous, doesn't it? Not that I was reading the title of the book. But it led to me asking a different question. What if growth isn't about doing more? What if growth is about doing less, but better? So now when I look at the idea of just be a little bit better than last year, I don't see ambition. I see a limitation. Because if your goal is tied to an old version of yourself, those same limiting beliefs and behavior patterns are going to follow. So you have to separate from that. So what has 10X thinking done for me? Well, year to date, I've funded 6.3 million. I've got just over 9 million in my pipeline now. Last week, I said I had just over 7 million, but that's gone up. So that's exciting. So yeah, I've got a little over 9 million in my pipeline right now, and I'm on pace for about 18 million. Not 10X, but certainly a lot better. And it's all because of that mindset shift. And my face is going out to 15,000 people now. I'm part of an email campaign because of a relationship that I've built with a top realtor in the city that I'm in. 6 months ago, I never would have reached out to her because I didn't have that mindset to be able to do that. So in order to scale, there's 3 filters that you have to use. There's a goal filter, the elimination filter, and the focus filter. Your goals need to be big enough that your current way of doing things won't work. Because if your current way of doing things work, nothing's going to change. If your current strategies can get the job done, nothing changes. You have to completely reinvent yourself in order to achieve the 10X goal because current you is not capable of achieving your 10X goal. Then comes the hard part. You have to start eliminating stuff, not optimizing, not improving, removing. because some of the stuff you do probably shouldn't even be part of your business. You have to be ruthless in your elimination at this point as well. And using Pareto's principle, you have to eliminate 80% of what you're doing, because 20% of what you're doing right now is giving you 80% of your results. Now, don't get confused with elimination and delegation. So I'm using the word elimination here, but I mean eliminating from your to-do list, right? You can hire someone and do some of the things that you don't like doing or don't move the needle. It means eliminating from what you're doing. And then your focus filter, what's left is usually obvious. You get the better deals, you get the better clients, and you start doing the work that actually matters. You become the CEO of your company and no longer an employee. You can't see all that until you remove all the other stuff. So with a goal filter, there's 3 goals that we have to look at. There's the outcome goal, target goals, and process goals. Now, outcome goals are the vision. This is the guiding light that directs everything else that you do. And the unique thing about outcome goals is you don't have full control over accomplishing those because there's external factors impacting whether you achieve that or not. And I'll give you an example. Let's say your goal is to be the number 1 agent at your brokerage and you actually do 10x. Let's say you do $100 million next year. Well, if one of your colleagues does 101 million, you're not number 1. Number 2 in that situation is not too shabby. But that's the point that I'm getting at right there is the outcome goal is the guiding light. It's the vision. It drives what you do. But because of the external factors, you may never, ever reach the outcome goal that you want, but you can do some pretty cool things either way. Target goals are the types of goals that everybody thinks about when we say goals. These are the specific measurable achievements and milestones that you try to reach. Example here would be you want to fund 50 million or I want to close 50 deals, right? It's a very specific target. You have full control over achieving the target goal. Process goals are the actionable steps that you take in order to achieve the target goal in hopes of reaching the outcome goal. Now, once you've got all those goals laid out, you want to reverse engineer them. And it's really important that you go backwards because going forwards would be like jumping in your car and just driving with no destination in sight. You're just blindly going somewhere. So reverse engineer your goals, start with the vision. You don't have to go as big as 10 years. Right? You can go 5 or 3, but start with the big vision, the guiding light, the destination. Once you've got that, what do you need to do this year to be on path towards achieving that outcome goal? What do you need to do quarterly in order to be on track to hit the annual goal? What do you need to do monthly to be on track for the quarterly goal? And what do you need to do weekly in order to be on path for the monthly goal? And so on and so forth. Now, once you've got the goals, you've got the plan laid out, all that great stuff, the universe can have a funny way of pushing back. You get rejected by a client or a referral partner stops wanting to work with you, and then 2 or 3 more in a row. And self-doubt creeps in. What was I thinking? There's no way I can make $1 million a year. The market shifts, rates skyrocket, the banks are stealing all your money, you haven't funded a deal in 3 weeks, the cold and flu bug is rampant in your house because your kids are walking diseases. Personal life is coming into this example here. So what if you lose a client? Or you lose a referral partner? Ask them why. Because there's something to be gained in that loss. Cash flow's tight. Prepare for that ahead of time with a contingency fund. That might not work as well for us pros in the audience because we're already kind of in this. That'll hit better with the rookies, but there's always ups and downs in this business, right? So prepare for that ahead of time. If you've lost motivation, go back to your why. Why are you doing this? If you have an accountability partner, that's the time to call them. If you don't have an accountability partner, get one, because I think they're pretty important. And if you fall behind on your targets, look at what you've been doing. Find out what's working and what's not, and make adjustments. Sometimes the universe gives back as well. And me standing here is proof of that. So when the universe gives back, you take that shit and run, because it doesn't happen very often. So before we get into you guys implementing this and talking about your 10x goals, let's do a quick recap. So know your default communication style so that you know when to toggle the switch in different scenarios. If your current self can achieve the goal that you've laid out for yourself, it's not big enough. Write down the goal that you think you are not capable of doing. That's the starting point. Use the 3 filters of scaling, goal, elimination, and focus, and prepare for the universe to fight back, but accept the opportunities when the universe delivers. So think bigger in order to achieve more. 2, 1, 0. Thank you.
Hey, thanks again for listening, and hopefully you're inspired by this talk from Derrick. If you are interested in coming to a Broker Talks event, we're going to be doing those in Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary coming up in the fall. You can go to BrokerTalks.com and check that out. Thanks for listening. As I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that someone else hasn't already solved. The problem is finding the answer when you need it. This podcast is designed to provide some of those answers. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.